I have 3 cell phone cameras set up and I've only got 1 shot at this, so I hope this works. What is happening, everybody? Today, gonna be a little bit of a different video for you today. It's gonna be a 2-parter. In part A, we're going to parge the cinder block wall with mortar mix, do some sculpting, a little bit of carving, a little bit of texturing, and then in part B, we're gonna use the Cementol. We're gonna also do some parging, but we're also gonna do some build outs. We're gonna be doing a little bit of showing off with that one as well. So I hope you guys like it. I hope you get something out of it. And let's get to it and let's make something cool. Alright, so I've shown you the mortar mix 100 times by now, but I've never shown you what it's actually used for. So today we're going to parge the cinder block wall and do some sculpting. We're going to do some fun stuff with it. I'm going to show you what this product was actually intended for. So what is parging a wall anyway? Well, it's just simply put, we are just simply putting a layer of material on this cinder block wall. Before I forget, I just want to make it clear that this is not the proper way to set cinder blocks. Doing a dry stack like this is not a good idea. This is for demonstration purposes only. It's got a 12-inch trowel, 5-inch margin trowel, and the trusty rusty bucket scraper. I start with 5 quarts of water. Now we got a good peanut butter, like a oatmeal consistency. That's perfect for what we want to do today. No flow control today because we're going vertical. Now, one of the many cool things about Rapid Set Mortar Mix is that it doesn't require any kind of bonding primer to bond to existing concrete. But you got to make sure that it's clean, free of loose debris, free of paint, and free of any oils or greases. Also, before we begin, we gotta have some moisture in this wall. So we're just gonna take some water and wet it down. This is gonna do a couple of things. It's gonna help it grab onto that substrate. Also, it's going to prevent the substrate from sucking the moisture out of the product. We don't want that. So we're gonna put the material on the trowel. We're going to simply take the material and drag it all the way up. Now, I like to hold the trowel like this. Put it flat right over my knuckles, kind of like a little table. Take about as much material as that I'm comfortable with and put it right on top. I've got my material. I'm just gonna go straight to the bottom with it and pull all the way up. Now I've got my material down here. I'm just gonna go straight up with it. I'm looking to go with a 1/2-inch layer here. Now I'm doing a couple of things here. I'm going all the way to the bottom and I draw straight up until I'm past the material. Also, I'm keeping my trowel at a nice low angle. Don't ever flatten it because now you're gonna create a suction and then guess what happens? You're gonna pull it right off. And that's not a good time. Can you see how I'm also doing it in sections? Section here, section here, section here. Then I start over again, section here, section here, section here. Now also, as I've said many times, this stuff is fast. You've got about 15 minutes to a half hour, depending on temperatures, to work with this stuff. So if you feel like you're gonna need more time, don't be afraid to use the second tool to slow that work time down. The lower the angle I get, the smoother it gets. The sharper the angle, the rougher it gets. As far as how am I getting an even, consistent thickness, you just get a feel for it. The more you work with it, the more you practice, it'll come to you. If I get nice ugly lines like this, I just overlap and I put a little bit more pressure this way, not this way. All right, now, I really could just leave it like this, wait an hour, maybe wait 24 hours, and I can go ahead and paint it with whatever color if I want, if I so choose. But let's take it just one step further, shall we? Along the bottom, let's do kind of a rock pattern, okay? But I want to give it a more three-dimensional look. Just gonna add about another inch of material. I know, you guys have been doing this for 30 years. You're saying, no, not that much material, you can't do that. Yes, I can. And why is it always 30 years? I worked for Home Depot for about 8 years, and I heard on a weekly basis, I've been doing this for 30 years. Always 30 years. It's never like 15 or 23. It's always 30 years. And the guy looks to me to be about 35 years old. I don't know. Again, do your very best not to flatten that trowel out. Always on a nice shallow angle. Now I've got the material that I want on there. Now we're just gonna simply draw out the pattern that we want with the corner of our trowel. Now, before you try giving me the excuse that you're not an artist, well, I'm not an artist either, so don't give me that. If you really need to, have yourself a predetermined drawn out pattern. It's as easy as that. Now, I've got a kind of a rough pattern drawn out right now, but I'm noticing that it's still just I need to let it set up for a couple more minutes, but I don't want to leave it for too long. So I'm going to leave this for a second, and I'm going to draw our attention to this. I want to give this wall kind of a post-war kind of look, or like a Mediterranean stucco crumbling off the old brick kind of look. So I'm just going to take my trowel, and I'm going to apply some pressure like this. I'm almost kind of letting the material curl over my trowel a little bit. All right, this is gonna be our stucco finish side. This is going to be our brick side. Doing a stucco finish is so very simple, and let me show you. Take a damp sponge and just lightly rub the surface. All I'm doing here is exposing the aggregate. If you have any exposed edges, go ahead and seal those up real quick. That will prevent water from getting behind the material and popping it out once it freezes. Okay, I think this is ready to go ahead and start working on. All right, now I'm going to get into my lines and go on a little bit of an angle and kind of round all the corners off. That's it. Just trying to go for as much of a natural look as I can. Now these tight spots along the bottom, you want to get in there with your small margin trowel. This one's a 5-inch. Don't be afraid to get your fingers in there too. Remember, we're going for a natural look here. Now, sometimes with rock walls, you have rocks that are butted right up against each other, and then sometimes you have rocks that have big, large spaces in between them. So do your best to mimic that look, and maybe carve some away on an angle. All right, that's looking good. So now I've got them well defined, and so now I want to start going around with my hands and my fingers and getting rid of these harsh lines. I also want to take my knuckles and just kind of give them little depressions here and there. Now, if you wanted to make it a little rougher, you could go ahead and take your sponge and kind of roughen the rocks out a little bit, but I think we're good here. Let's move on to our brick wall. All right, now for this guy, we're going to use one of these point tools. It's got a nice little rounded edge on it to get into those real mortar joints. We're gonna use them to carve out our bricks. Right on the ends, I like to jab those out, give it a more three-dimensional effect. These lines and these boogers, they're a little harsh, so I want to just kind of round them over with my fingers. And that's pretty much it. Why would we want to do something like this? Maybe we've got an old, torn cinder block wall that we need to spruce it up, make it look nice. Or maybe we have an existing rock pattern that we have to match. Maybe you just simply want to dress your wall up with a stucco finish, or maybe repair and restore some stucco finish. You can do all this with a Rapid Set Mortar mix, and it doesn't require a bonding primer to bond to existing cement. This is going to be rock solid in 1 hour, so virtually you could paint this in 1 hour. Keep in mind, today it's about 50 degrees Fahrenheit out right now. It's a nice cool day. I was able to spend a lot of time on something like this. When you're getting into those hotter days, like 70 degrees, no way you're gonna have this much time. So either use the set control, use ice cold water. If you're out in the sun and the sun is blasting on this, make sure you set up some sort of tent to give it some shade. All these things to give yourself some more working time. What else would you do with a project like this? Well, I don't know, you're the one that clicked on this video. Make sure you look out for part B of this video, where we're going to put cement tile on this side, do a nice big bump out on the top, and we're gonna do something really cool with these bricks too. Make sure to like, and if you haven't subscribed already, please think about doing so. I promise you won't regret it, and I will see you guys in part B.